Welcome back to another episode of the Design, Build, Hunt podcast. I've got Tim and Sam from Wisconsin on the line with me today. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here, Josh.
Hey, Josh. Good to see you.
These second episode intros are always a little bit weird. Full disclosure for folks listening, we record one or two at a time. And so sometimes we just got done recording one. And so to say, hey, guys, welcome to the show, it's like, wait, we were already on the show. We never left the show. We've been on the show all morning at this point.
It's all good. Let's keep talking deer.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we wanted to talk now about last minute prep before the season. It is officially less than a month now where I'm sitting until deer season. Less than a month for you guys too. We actually have the same opening day this year. So what are some of those last minute things that you've neglected on your property? I was going to say last minute things guys could be working on. I want to hear about you, because I don't know about you, but I am less prepared for this deer season than I have been for any deer season in recent memory. It's not looking good, guys. I got a bin full of trail cameras sitting right here that are not out yet. And this is not good. I just picked up a new lease in Alabama. I've never even been there. I'm going to go learn about it this weekend, hopefully. So, my hunting is a mess. What have you guys neglected up to this point?
Oh, a lot of things. I think about it. We've done a good job this year of staying out of the timber, and that's been we've done a lot of work developing this property that we've had over the last several years. But one of the things that's high on my list to talk about, what we have to do getting back in. We did check all our stands and got those tuned up as far as like shooting lanes and adjusting straps and all that. We do that in the spring before green up so that we can just leave them alone. But I want to go back now and make sure that, our mock scrapes are still up, the corridors aren't blocked. So it's just a quick whistle through the all those corridors and mock scrapes and just one quick look at the stand. I'm a little picky on that. I fire up the chainsaw when I start. So I always have this, I don't want to spook deer. You're going to push them out, but you want to be loud doing it. But also fairly conscientious of scent too. I know, you got the chainsaw running, but human scent wise, I'm going to throw my boots on. I'm going to move quickly. I'm not going to touch anything I don't need to. But if there's that tree that's fallen down on a mock scrape, that's the thing I'm after. I want to get that taken care of and cleaned up.
Yeah. So you're going all the way through your corridors. You're not, obviously you're trying to be careful, but at the same time, you realize you've got to get this work done, right?
Yeah. And I may not, at this time, I'm not going into every single corridor. Like I'm not going to go follow them back into a bedding area. Like if a tree fell down back by a bedding area that I'm not hunting, I know they'll find their way out of there and hit that corridor that's coming to the water hole, to the mock scrape, to the food plot. But on my stand location, I want to make sure that, I can look and see 50 or 100 yards, look around the corner and make sure that everything coming to that point is clear. Because the last thing you want is a big tree that fell down and all of a sudden, they're not getting to your water hole because it's at a dead end.
Right. Tim, what are some of the things that you, I guess, have maybe neglected that now you're going to have to get around to last minute?
Well, I feel way better hearing that both of you feel like you're behind, because it's been my MO all summer. As I feel like I'm 3 weeks and 3 tasks behind. So thank you for not letting me be the only one.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Welcome.
As far as stand prep, the only thing I would add to what Sam said, I think he's spot on. Let's make it feel like we're not making a hunting intrusion. Let's watch scent. If it can be done, I like to get in the day of or the day before a rain, just to help with washing that scent away, especially as we get into some of those invasive areas or more invasive areas of the property. But the one thing I would add is making sure that my access trail into that into that stand location is clean as well. I'm pretty paranoid about leaves, so I'm going to come back through once all the leaves fall. I'm going to take the leaf blower through it really quick. But even now, walking in the dark, I don't want to trip on a new log that's fallen down, a branch, step on something to make noise. Let's make sure that access is really clean. And then I would also say, some of those setups are going to be more invasive than others. I try to stay to those more perimeter areas of the property if I can, just to make it again feel like we're not diving in too far into the property.
Right. And I want to talk about that access piece a little bit. I think that's one of the things that when I first started working with Sam when we were living in Wisconsin, I realized, okay, there's a new level. Like I always wanted to have a clear access trail, of course, but Sam ended up taking things to a whole new level, and that's something that I've been applying to properties, having clients have success based on that. So, what do you mean when you say clean up an access trail? Because I have a feeling it's more than just cut a few branches out of the way.
If I can, I want it down to the dirt. I don't want to make any noise on the way in. I want it mowed low if there is grass growing, so that I'm not leaving scent. I don't want any kind of vegetation leaning in that I could rub against. I'm trying to make this scent free, noise free, something I could walk almost with my eyes closed in the dark, and I have no issues at all.
Right, right. And it sounds like it's a bit overboard, but it's really not. It can be the difference maker.
Yeah, especially if this is a stand location that you're trying to get to where deer may be bedded only 80 yards, 90 yards away. I need to get in there really clean.
Right.
Yeah, and those major routes in too, one of the things I've taken a step further, and Timmy mentioned grass or being mowed low. I actually will spray it now here late August, as late as um, Labor Day, and just spray it with ground clear so that it is dirt. That's all that's left when you're coming in during the hunting season.
Yeah, so making it absolutely stealthy on your way in. So maybe some projects now, not necessarily that you have neglected, but ones that you would encourage clients to be getting on here. Like maybe they're eyeballing the season, maybe they've gotten a lot of work done. What are maybe some of the last minute checklist items that are easy to forget or easy to overlook? But you could really make good progress here with 29 days out from season.
Yeah, Josh, one of the things I always talk to people, especially if they're a new client coming in and they're in a hurry, maybe they just bought the property, is really to scout out those best hunting sets. I think sometimes people can get lost in trying to do something like maybe they want to get a plot in or this or that, but if they really just understood how deer are using the property, even from not necessarily a scouting level, but just from a understanding topography and looking at all the content that we put out on that. And tip the hat to Greg too, by the way, on all of his stuff that he does with topography and with his reels on that on social media. You should check it out if you haven't. But anyway, understanding how deer are using the property and picking those setups to do it. Um, Back to what Tim said, maybe you have some early season stuff that's right on the edge of a field, super easy to get at. It's just the nice easy sets, but then also those common locations, just down from a ridge, just in a saddle location. Some of these pinch points we have on tops of drainages. Scouting those things even virtually and going out there and finding that spot. I think sometimes people focus too much on one spot. Hey, I'm going to make this quarter acre kill plot and I'm going to have all of my hunts here. Well, you might be missing that opportunity because the buck's back in the timber.
Right. Right.
Yeah, Sam, I think that's a good call out. We think about where we're going to get that stand set up for the early season because maybe that's where we have that trail camera on the edge of the field and we're seeing lots of pictures and we're fired up. But don't lose sight that this is a long season and that spot that's really good early might not be good later. Let's look at that spot where we know we're going to be downwind of a bedding area. That's going to be a killer spot late October. And let's get that set now, even though, hey, maybe there's
Mhm.
not a whole lot on the trail camera that you have set up there. I know later on that's going to be where I want to be. So let's get that set now. And then we don't have to come in 2 weeks beforehand and all of a sudden make a big intrusion.
Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
good there's something that happens every single year, and it happens to me, and I know it happens to a lot of my clients and a lot of people in general. They're getting those summertime pictures of those big bucks on that field edge, and they're planning for that opening day success. And then opening day comes and it punches you in the mouth, and you don't get the buck. And now you're 2 weeks into season wondering what in the world am I going to do? Tim, you're saying go ahead and let's start thinking about that. Let's go ahead and live in reality. In an ideal world, sure, we tag out on opening day. Well, maybe not ideal because then you've got the rest of the season to just sit and do nothing. But you know, let's go ahead and plan like maybe we don't get him the first afternoon of the season. Or maybe he's not consistent enough that we don't even really wanna mess up our property too much, depending on especially on the size of your property. Maybe you wanna go, hunt some permission ground or leased ground or public ground or whatever it is so that you're not bumping that buck off of your property or taking a risk in the early season. So, go ahead and get on some of those things. Now, what are some of those maybe early season sets? We've alluded to it before, but as we're thinking about last minute prep and we want to have a couple of spots maybe that we can jump out to, because let's face it, lots of guys are going to be out opening day. Doesn't matter if it's 95 degrees, guys are going to be going, right? What are some of the things they can do now to make sure that that early season or opening day sit doesn't cost them a great day on November 4th?
That's a great tee up there, Josh. And my thoughts always go to what we're doing a lot of times is the first 2 weeks of the season. That's doe season for us. Yeah, if you get a buck or you have one patterned and you think you can know where they're at, great, go there. And usually though, we're talking field edges. If you're not getting back into the timber, if you're going into the timber before October, in my opinion, you really have something figured out that is very specific to
Mm,
a deer, and you have bulletproof access and all these other things we've been talking about. For us, we're not getting back into the timber until probably mid-October, and we're trying to stay on those edges, those summer patterns. The egg that's out there, egg fields are going to be pretty consistent into that early October timeframe until the beans start getting picked, and then the corn and so on. But even early alfalfa, getting on the edge of fields. I like to be out there shooting does early and get that business done with. And then if we bump into a buck along the way, that's a bonus. It kind of ties into understanding different parts of the season too. And anybody who's listened to the podcast for a while knows I'm a huge advocate of that pre-rut time frame with mock scrapes and deer travel and all that. I also really love late season, having late season food sources and doing muzzleloader hunting and some of those things. I love all that later on, and I don't want to screw it up by bombing into the timber half a dozen times between beginning of season and later October.
right, right.
Right. Think of it as like a net around your property is the way I like to picture it. And so as the season progresses, we're kind of closing that net further and further. So early on, we're on those perimeter edges, we're in those stands that are low impact. And as the season progresses, as we get more information about maybe where that specific target buck is, then we can start to get more aggressive. But we don't want to go right into the middle of that early on because we're going to lower the chances for the rest of the season.
Right, right. Yeah, very good point. And to that point, so one of the things that I'm doing this year is I know where my best spots are going to be. I'm going to avoid those best spots early in the season. But this weekend with my kids, we're allowed to put out corn and stuff here in Georgia. So we're going to go out with a bunch of bags of corn and a bunch of trail cameras, and we're going to find where can we get on a doe early season with the kids in an easy spot that's nowhere near where I want to be hunting the rest of the season. So we've kind of got dialed in. Okay, these are my best spots. How far away from those good spots can I be and still get some does in the freezer, early in the season? So that's going to be our mission for the weekend. So you guys can pray for me with 3 kids, a side by side, and a bunch of bags of corn. I don't know how well that's going to go, but we're going to give it a shot.
Sounds like a great time, Josh. Sounds like a great time.
Making memories either way,
That's right.
good or bad.
Making memories either way. It should be an absolute blast. So, what about gear, guys? Last minute prep. I hate every season. It seems like I get to my stand and I left something that I really wanted in my bag. It might be my thermocell, it might be my release, it might be, one year I forgot to swap. So I'd been shooting my bow and I forgot to swap my broadheads back out, and I had had field points when I got there. So I was like, well, I guess we're just watching deer this afternoon. So, there's always something that I seem to forget. So what are you guys doing to get just yourself, prepped and ready and your gear prepped and ready?
That's what those early season doe hunts are for. Because if you get out there and don't have one of those things, you're like, I'll walk back to the truck and get it and come
Yeah.
back out again. It's like you can make those mistakes. And generally, we're hunting a couple hundred yards from a truck at that point in time. And it's easy in and out. And, don't remember that this is supposed to be fun. Don't
That's
get out there and get all discouraged that you forgot whatever you need. I mean, plus the thing I always think about is with the gear side of things, you get everything cleaned up and ready to go, and you're all set in the early season. You got everything just so in your pack. And by the time you get to late season, you're like running out of the truck, grab your bow, throw the release in your pocket, and yep, there's arrows in the quiver. I'm off. It's like
right.
you realize you don't need that much. And, the gear junkies out there will probably shut this off after it, but you don't, take the few things you need and go out there and enjoy it. I did a few hunts last year where I went out with a release in my pocket and my bow, and I had a much more enjoyable time, I think, because the phone, the stuff, it was all in the truck, and I just went out there with my bow, and it was great.
Oh, Sam, that leaving the phone in the truck thing, I want to try it this year, but I'm not sure I'm ready. No, I'm just kidding. I concern myself with, it's like, what if somebody calls? What if I get that text? What if I get that email? What if that probably means I just need to do a better job of like making sure I button things up before I head out into the timber.
Yeah, take a watch and
Uh,
leave the truck.
well, see, that's always my excuse. Well, I need it to tell the time, don't I? Like, no, you could wear a watch like humans before smartphones, but
Yeah, just try it. Try it. Everybody go try that. That's something you should do in the early season and just enjoy it. In those early season hunts, especially on field edges and whatnot, as every day is different. I take that in and just I love to see how creation changes throughout the
right,
course of that fall time frame, that first month. Every day has something to see.
right, right. Yeah, that's good. Tim, what about you when it comes to gear, getting yourself ready, getting your gear ready for that early season first couple of hunts?
All right, let's take the total opposite end of the spectrum from what Sam said. Although I love what he said, that's the way I want to approach it, especially early season. But let's go opposite end. Let's say we're very meticulous gear junkie hunter. I have before gone and done a dry run in my backyard,
Yep.
like I'm going to go hunting. So I'm not driving to the property, but I'm putting on my gear. I'm setting my pack up. I'm putting my saddle up in a tree in my backyard, and I'm shooting a bunch of arrows that day from my stand setup. And then that's typically when I go, oh, you know what's not in my pack yet that I usually like to have, or I forgot my binoculars just on my truck from glassing the other night. That dry run hopefully gets those first couple of mental errors out of the way before you actually get in the woods, because we don't have that we don't have that muscle memory built up yet of exactly where everything is, and maybe something moved from where it was last year. So you might get a few sideways looks from the neighbors, but it is a good way to get out there and get those mistakes out of the way.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I like that idea of a dry run. I do that as well. I make sure I take it all the way through. So I've got all my gear on my back. I walk in just like I'm hunting, get to the tree in the backyard, climb the tree. I don't shoot a ton of arrows necessarily, but I do want to make sure I shoot at least one so that I'm simulating, okay, I pulled the arrow out, shoot, okay, how am I going to recover this deer? All right, maybe I have my tow strap or drag strap in with me or whatever it is that I need. And yeah, just one way to make sure you're not forgetting things, but also I made a really big mistake last year. And this is something that I need to rectify for this coming year. I didn't get to hunt early season last year. It was just life, one thing or another. So my first time out in the timber hunting was basically in November, and was when I was really able to first start getting out. And I just didn't have my mind ready. I just mentally was not prepared. And I had what I thought was a small buck come in behind a doe. I'm sitting, overwatching a large kind of marshy area, thinking I'll get to, glass some deer at 300 yards, no big deal. Well, I have a doe come through at 20 yards, and then a buck is behind her. He stops behind some brush. I can see a little fork, so I'm like, okay, no big deal, just a little fork. I draw back. I can see where his vitals are, right? I just can't see the rest of his rack. So I settle in the pen, like, haha, he could be mine if I wanted him. I let down. He walks on a little bit further, crosses this little ditch. Now he's outside of shooting range. He gets up over the other side of the ditch, and I realize he's a giant. And what I'd seen was a split G2, not one side of a little forky. Just mentally, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have my binoculars sitting there, so I couldn't get a real good look at his rack through the brush. And just, I have vowed that this year is not going to be the year that I am mentally not ready. And I think making sure we get in some of those early season doe hunts, both from a, you know, mechanical, if you want to call it that, way of, you know, making sure we can get all of our stuff and us into the woods and we've got everything that we need, but also that we're mentally prepped. So, guys, anything else last minute? Any parting words? Guys have less than a month to get out in the timber. When this comes out, they'll probably have about 3 weeks before they are in the timber. Any last words for them?
One of the things we haven't talked much about in this episode is trail cams. I know we spent a lot of time talking about that in other areas, but early seasons or summer and into early season like to have those field edges, the inventory type locations. But around Labor Day, 2, 3 weeks before the season, I want to get those cameras to my, call them, in season locations. Maybe
Hmm.
they're in the timber, the mock scrapes. So we talked before about that, that run through the timber to check those stand setups just one quick time. That's when those cameras are going in. I want to make sure I get those set. That's a lot of my cell cams, getting those into location. And take a minute, make sure it's, the frame is where you want it. Check that you're getting the picture on your phone, all those things. Do your best to eliminate that return trip. And I'm going to bring it back up again because it was a great point that Tim made. Was if you can do that right before rain. I mean, right on a front is fantastic. I mean, there's nothing better than doing that type of work and walking out in the pouring rain.
Right.
That's great.
Are you doing anything to your cameras to, try to cover them up as far as scent goes? Are you spraying them with anything, or are you just trying to handle them carefully and trying to time that rain?
Um, Most of the time I'm sloppy and I don't, Josh, on the scent control thing. I have wiped them off before, or take that, the scent spray and have that with me and just kind of or those the wipes
Hmm.
and just hit them quick. But for the most part, it's like, I'm not perfect with scent and I'm not overly concerned. I'm more concerned about them being seen and trying to
Right.
get them higher up on a tree. Sometimes, this is often a two-man affair because if you're doing mock scrapes, it's a lot easier. But I'll take a single ladder stick and put
Hmm.
it on the tree so I can get the camera that much higher. So
Yep.
that's a nice little trick that I like to do when we're making those final camera setups.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because it seems like some bucks don't care about that camera down in their face, but some really, really do. And
Yeah.
so we don't want to take those chances. Tim, any parting words?
Only thing I can think of is batteries.
Yeah.
I want fresh batteries in every camera. I don't want it to run out on October 29th, and now all of a sudden I got to either go blind or get the worst thing, right? You got to decide between going blind and getting in there and switching out batteries. So fresh batteries now. Hopefully they'll make it through the season for me.
Yeah. And to that point,
100% solar panels, buddy.
There
mm,
you go. I have got a few, but I need a few more.
yeah,
Yeah, just buy them and be done with it.
solar panels. And are you running the solar to a 12 volt as well?
Yes.
What about you, Sam?
I had the Tactic cans, those lithiums, the
Right.
rechargeable lithium. So you throw those in, and if you got a full charge on those and you got a panel running, I think it'd be just fine.
Yep. Good deal.
Be
Well,
mindful of the orientation though. That try to get that
Oh,
panel south facing on a tree if you can.
yep. Even if you have to separate it just a little
That's
bit,
right. Yep.
you can get that panel up a little bit higher. There are actually some things you can do to extend that wire. So if you feel like you don't quite have enough, there are some things you can do to swap that out, or depending on what brand of trail camera you're running, you can actually have a longer one and have it well up into the tree if you need to make sure that you're getting good sunlight on that panel. So all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, folks. Go ahead and get out there, do your last minute prep, get ready for bow hunting season because it's right around the corner. And I think we're looking forward here in the next couple of weeks to shifting our attention to tactics and maybe some deer hunting stories and that kind of thing. And certainly, we're going to be bringing you updates from the field, both from our team of consultants here as well as clients who are starting to have success. So, guys, there are good times ahead.